there, friends. Debbie here. I'm so glad you're here today. We're diving into something a little tender, a little powerful, and totally transformative. You know, if you've listened to me at all, that I love talking about the linguistic environment, which is really a fancy statement for words. Yep, words, but not just any words. Today, we're going to look at three little beauties that hold a lot of weight: love, adoration, and devotion. So grab your coffee, take a breath, and let's unpack how these powerful words can help you create a more lit up, aligned, and joy filled life. Let's go. Welcome to Lead Your Life, the podcast for people who are seeking harmony in business and in life. My name is Debbie Heiser, and I'm an inner mastery and business mindset coach and the chief igniter here at The Lit Up Life. I feel an urgency to help people let go of past messaging so that they can make a lot of money doing what they love without sacrificing what they value most. Welcome. We're glad you're here.
Straight from the corners of my mind is where I find my sanity.
Hello, my beautiful friends, and welcome back to another episode of Lead Your Life with Debbie Heiser. I'm so glad you're here because today we're going to dive into something that's been rolling around in my heart and my mind lately. And you know, I've talked about this before, the power of words, and the linguistic environment shows and kind of cares for what's really happening inside of us and in our hearts. And so we're going to look at some powerful words today. The words love, adoration or adore, devotion, and commitment, and really kind of dig into, and I'll give you some examples of how these have shown in my life as examples as we go through this. So words matter. And I have a good friend, Erica Barnhart, who will be on next month, but she talks about how words matter and words are matter. They are energy. And so they shape the world around us. They create connection or distance. That's why this linguistic environment is so important. Words also reveal our truth or they hide it. So what happens when we pause long enough to ask these questions? What does love really mean to you? What do I adore? And I don't know about you, but when I was first introduced to this word adore, I thought, wow, I do say once in a while, oh, I adore you. But I hadn't really given much thought to the word adore. And the third one is, what are you truly devoted to? So let's dive in and look at these. So, what is love really? You know, we throw the word love around a lot, and I love watching my grandson because he'll be like, I love pizza, right? Or we might say, I love this song, or I love tacos. I love my dog Maverick. I love my business, except for marketing. Just joking. But you know, like we toss those around. We say, I love you. You know, when my son and I are talking on the phone, hey, love you. See you later. And I know I mean the word, but I'm not giving a lot of mindful intention to it. So today, I really want to challenge us to ask the question, how do I show love? And as we go through this, feel free to push pause if you want to do some journaling on this, or if you just want to think about it and noodle it, that's fine too. But how do you show love? And I always like to start with, how do you show love to others? Because we can readily seem to come up with that. And so when you think about loving others, how do you show them that you love them? And then how do you show you love your work? And if you don't love your work, definitely call me and let's chat, because life is too short not to love your profession, because that is what you spend more hours doing that than anywhere else. So how do you show love to others? How do you show love to your work or your business? And last, how do you show love to yourself? Now, don't get me wrong. I love a good massage, and I get a massage once a month by a great massage therapist, and occasionally go to my other favorite massage therapist. And so I do it twice a month. But massages are not like, I hear that all the time. Oh, self-love. I take care of myself because I get massages and pedicures and manicures. Those are great. But like, this is soul work. Like, what do you do to love yourself and do things that create soul changes, that change your heart as well? Because what I see happen a lot, and especially among purpose-driven leaders and entrepreneurs, is that this idea of love, I also look at the word kindness, and kindness to me has a lot to do with love as well. And what I see so many times is that we're so much kinder to other people than we are to ourselves. We forgive flaws. Now, if it's family, sometimes that holds a whole different dynamic, but we forgive their flaws, their mistakes that they make at work. We encourage their growth. But then when it comes to us, our critical parent comes out. We criticize, we beat ourselves up, we push, we hustle. We think, oh, if I just do this one more thing, right? And we just get into that chaos, really. And it's not peaceful at all. So I really want to invite you to consider, what would it look like to love yourself the way you love others? And I will say to you, the other thing I've realized from this is that as I've looked at this word love, that many times I expect something from someone else that I'm not willing to give. And it doesn't work that way. So I think about my dad. And I love my father. He is a great man. He's still alive. I don't want to make it sound like it's past tense, but I love my dad, and I had a great childhood. Were there things, we all do things to screw up our kids, right? But I knew at the base of everything that he loved me. And after my mom passed away, there was a lot of change that happened for all of us, right? And his behavior changed some. And so it became this thing of like, I became very critical of him. And so, one of the things I realized through some different circumstances that happened in my life and some growth that I had was that I expected my dad to love me unconditionally, but I wasn't willing to do the same. I wasn't willing to love him unconditionally. And if I wanted him to love me unconditionally, I had to love myself unconditionally. Now, are there times that I put conditions on it? Absolutely. It's progress, not perfection. But think about that. If you loved yourself the way you love others, and if you have an expectation around someone to love you a certain way, ask yourself the tough question. Get in your face and say, am I doing what I'm expecting? Because if you're not, the universe doesn't work that way. Now, sometimes people love us in spite of ourselves, right? But that true, like, really deep piece of it, right? So when I think about loving myself, I think about honoring my needs, knowing that I have told my staff, don't reach out to me before 10 a.m. and expect an answer. We've moved to WhatsApp so that I don't get a text. Text for me, I feel like I respond a lot quicker, but I feel, I don't know why, a little bit more sense of freedom when it's WhatsApp to get back to someone. So honor your needs, know what your needs are and honor those. And then speak kindly to yourself, those inner voices that you have. Ask yourself, like sometimes I look at my grandson and I think, would I say that to my grandsons? No, half the time, no. So speak kindly to yourself and then give yourself some grace. And, I hear people say I'm a recovering perfectionist. And I went through that too. I wouldn't say that I'm that anymore. I like control. I will say that. And that's my next growth edge. But when I think about perfectionism, it's important to understand that that can really be an Achilles heel. So giving myself some grace, that what does okay look like? I just got off the call with my mastermind gals, and we were talking about, what does well done look like? Right? It doesn't have to be perfect, but what does well done look like? So give yourself some grace. And that's a way that I love myself. Another piece that I do is, I just got back from spending a week hanging out with some monks in California, and that feeds my soul. And so being really mindful about setting up some trips. I love to travel. Others of you, travel is not your thing, and I get that. But like, I have a trip coming up for my niece's graduation that'll be surrounded by family and friends. It'll be awesome. And then I'm doing 2 trips with my, I call them my Paris mastermind, but the gals I went to Paris with my business coach with, that will be some learning and things that we're doing outside of our comfort zones. And those things fill me up and allow me to come do the work that I'm doing and doing it well. And so make sure that you understand what your needs are, because people can't drink from a cup that's empty. So that's how I show myself some love. Now, the other part of love is loving your business. and loving all of it. Because as we shift into thinking about our business, I have seen a pattern over and over again with clients where they have a dream, right? They love this dream or this idea of being in business, but they resist the structure, the systems, the sales, the businessy parts of the business. Or they love what they're doing, the product that they're selling or the service that they're providing, but they feel really disconnected from the original dream that inspired it. They're tired, they're burned out, they're just trying to make it through the day. And here's what I believe. I believe for your business to truly thrive, you got to love all three things, not perfectly, but you got to love them consistently. The first one is the dream, that vision that pulled you into starting your business or being in the profession that you're in. And if you haven't visited this in a while, I invite you to ask yourself, what got me into this profession or business in the first place? Is that still the dream? Because you see, dreams change over time. And if you don't feel the same pull you did in the past around your dream, stop right now and start dreaming again. You know, my dream and part of what I've always done all of my life is help people see possibilities. And part of that, when I sold Yellow Pages, and I'm aging myself, some of you listening may not even know what those are. My boss at the time said, "You're not just selling Yellow Pages, you're selling hopes, wishes, and dreams. You're helping clients bring in more clients so that they can go do what they want to do with their life." And the funny thing is I'm doing the same thing today. I'm just not selling Yellow Pages. So dream, what is it that brought you to this? Part of my dream is to have the flexibility to lead a lit up life. Later we're going to talk, not in this segment, but I'm going to bring one up later about opportunity costs. Could I build a business that was multi-million dollars? Absolutely. Would I love to have $1 million? Absolutely. But you know what? I'm not willing. There's an opportunity cost to it. I want to have the time to ski Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Now, I could also build it in a different way. So there's other ways to do that. But the way that I'm doing it, I would prefer to do what I do it really well, make good money, make consistent six figures and high six figures. But digging into this, it is an opportunity cost. So I don't want to give that away because we'll have a different podcast about that. But having that dream and revisiting that dream, right? It's flexibility. Feel like you have control over your kind of over your schedule, that you have control over different things that are happening. So, whatever it is for you, dream again, have that dream alive. The second part of this love that you need to have is around your product or service. So, this is the thing that you've poured your heart into. What is it that you provide? What is the service you provide to people? And if you have a product, you're also providing service. But what is that product? What does it help people solve? You know, talking about the Yellow Pages, it's that bigger picture, right? Like I'm helping people with their hopes, wishes, and dreams. I was just doing a sales workshop yesterday, and someone was talking about their business and what they were doing. And it was just kind of like this rote, blah, blah, blah. When she shared a success story or what she actually did for someone and how it gave them more life, like it healed them, that's the oomph that goes along with this. So I invite you to answer the question, how do I help people have more life? What do I help them solve? Then the third part of that is the business itself, the marketing, the selling. And I know everybody has a connotation about selling, but this authentic connecting with people, working with my accountant and my bookkeeper, adding my mileage. Now, I don't love necessarily getting into QuickBooks and adding my mileage, but I love the outcome of that with the tax break that I get, right? So it's about looking at that law of polarity and what's on the other side. So you don't have to be passionate about every task, but you can learn to adore the ecosystem you've created. See what I did there as we go into adoration? So look at that and figure out what it is that you have created. Find those things to focus on. So, and look at the parts that stretch you. Just because something feels like a failure doesn't mean it's a failure. If you believe that God is always for you or the universe is always for you, there's a lesson in there. There's a stretch for you, a growth opportunity. So that's the whole thing about love. 3 sections in your business. How do you love yourself and how do you show others that you love them? Now, the next part that I want to get into is about adoration and devotion. And in there's a little word commitment that we're going to touch on too. But when we think about the word adore and devotion, first of all, I mentioned this earlier. When someone talked about adoration, I'm like, wow, I haven't thought about that word really. But to adore someone or something is really to hold them in deep affection. And a lot of times there's some awe there, right? It's very heart centered and it blends this love and this appreciation of and this like kind of tender admiration that we have for someone. So I have to ask the question, how do you adore yourself? Or have you even thought about adoring yourself? Many clients I work with struggle with adoring themselves because they'd much rather beat themselves up, like I mentioned earlier, and be hard on themselves. Their critical parent is out running the show. And I really find this heartbreaking. And so a lot of the work that I do is to help people start adoring themselves, start believing in what they do, and then owning it. So as we look at adoration and this word adore, I want to give you some ideas of what this might feel like. So I mentioned that it's a heartfelt recognition. So it's not just about liking something like I love pizza. Excuse me. It's about seeing the beauty, the goodness, or the truth in someone or something and really feeling lit up by it, you know? You don't just acknowledge it, you delight in it. That's another good, juicy word. So, for instance, I adore hearing both of my grandsons laugh. Their laughter, it's not just because it's cute, it stirs something sacred in me, right? Like it touches my soul. It may be some art. When I went to the Uffizi in Florence, just all of the art, right? It's just like, it's not because it's pretty, but it evoked this like wonder and meaning and how like talented these artists are. If you think about adoration too, it's gentle. It's not this grasping desperation type of thing. Adoration creates spaciousness and it allows others or yourself to be fully seen and loved without needing to be fixed or controlled. Nothing do I hate worse than going into a body worker or someone that automatically I can already feel it has this idea that there's something in me that needs to be fixed. Well, I'm not there necessarily to be fixed. I'm there to dig out some additional layers so that I can have more peace and I can have more of a lit up life than I already have. And so when you think about this and the gentleness, it's a soft gaze, not this tight grip on something. And so if you think about that from a business perspective, to adore your business is to admire the essence of it, even when it's imperfect or evolving. And then when I think about my grandsons and I think about my dog, to adore them is to cherish who they are at their core, not just for what they do. As a little 8-month old, there's not much he does, right? So I just adore them. And adoration is really a sacred attention. It's this active presencing. I teach presencing at Gonzaga University, and it's always so cool to see people drop in and become present and practice that skill. And it is a skill, it's a disposition, but an ability to be present is a skill that can be learned. And when you adore something, you have this active presencing because you give it your full attention and your full appreciation. It's like this quiet devotion that says, I see you, I honor you, I love you just as you are. So, what does that look like for you? So, adoring yourself might look like speaking to yourself with kindness and gentleness, noticing your own radiance, remembering you're magnificent, and making sure you have people around you that that remind you of that. It might also be looking at your quirks with some affection. It's giving yourself care, not out of necessity, but because you truly value who you are. So, in short, adoration is really love with presence, tenderness, and wonder. It's not about perfection, it's about seeing and appreciating the essence. So, how do you bring adoration into your business, your relationships, or your routines? I will say, first of all, it starts with slowing down. To be present, sometimes we need to slow down and take a breath. I used to say all the time, slow down to speed up. We can't continue to go faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. It just doesn't work that way. So taking a pause to be present allows us to then go forward faster. Now, how do we do that? Part of it for me is seeing the beauty in what already is rather than just chasing what's next. So let me repeat that. See the beauty in what already is instead of chasing what's next. Now, I know brain science and how vibration and attraction works. So the more I look for something, the more I find it. So when I see beauty, I see abundance and miracles because I choose to, and my belief that God is always for me, then I see the beauty, the abundance, and the miracles. I surround myself with beauty. I live in a beautiful place. I have this every day when I drive to work or I ride my bike to work. I have a short little prayer and I say, please help me never to lose awe of this beautiful place. And I notice the eagles and the mountains and the way the lake is, or the sunrise or the sunset. So take a pause and notice those things. Notice the beauty around you. So think about who or what you adore and mimic that in ways for your business. So the other word is devotion. And I've really been sitting with this a little bit because I'm really committed. And devotion and commitment to me, sometimes I hear people using them interchangeably, but to me, they're different. They're not the same. To me, commitment can sometimes feel like a duty or even a burden. And it can frankly lead us into the victim game and be a martyr. And I stayed because I said I would, right? That's the victim game. But devotion to me is a choice. It's not an obligation. It's love in motion. It's on purpose. It's from my heart, and I'm really in alignment with it. And so for me, devotion really looks like and feels like that. Well, let me go this way. Like commitment sometimes can feel heavy, or as I mentioned, driven from obligation. So, for instance, in my marriage, right, I felt very heavy about that and I felt very obligated. I felt like I was committed. There were things within my own spiritual piece that I had to come to terms with. And to me, devotion comes from a place of love and purpose. It wasn't that I didn't love my ex-husband, I still do. But it wasn't working at the time, but I was committed to staying in it, even at the expense of myself. And I finally got to the point where I realized that's not healthy for either one of us, right? So devotion really comes from that place of love and purpose. And it's about showing it because you want to, not because you have to. And I also find that devotion, there's a level of consistency to it. It's not about the intensity of it, but really it's about this quiet, steady beat, right? The resiliency to keep showing up, not only when it's exciting, but also when it's messy, it's hard, or it's unclear. And I think too that devotion is transformative, right? Because when you're devoted to something, whether it's yourself, your relationships, your business, your craft, your calling, it shapes you. It invites that growth and that transformation to take place. And it asks you to stay in relationship with it, even as it evolves, right? So devotion to me is evolving, commitment is kind of stagnant. So some examples for me of what devotion might look like for myself is practicing self-trust, right? Like honoring my boundaries. And then also for me, because I'm a goer, I'm a doer, is to rest without feeling guilty, right? To be able to rest without feeling like I should have been doing something. That's my critical parent coming out. Now, for your business, what that might look like is nurturing it through both celebrations and challenges and not going down the negative train when something happens that it didn't go as planned or you didn't get as many people signed up for that, registered for that workshop or whatever the case would be, right? But it's about nurturing the business and saying, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this? And then about the dream is about holding the vision, even when it takes longer than you hoped, adjusting as you go forward, but not giving up, and then revisiting that dream to make sure it's still the thing that lights you up. So for me, really, in essence, devotion is a sacred yes. It's a hell yes. If there's anything that might be a no in it, that doesn't feel like devotion to me. That so that it lives in my body too, right? Like it's not just in my head, it's in my heart, it's in my body. And to be devoted means to commit to my heart, my energy, and to being present, deeply present and consistent to something or someone that I care about. It goes beyond obligation or duty. It's willing, it's soulful, it's a choice that's very soulful. So, you know, sometimes it's not about just about staying. It's about staying present, staying honest. That's some of the hardest part about being devoted and committed, right? And so staying lit up. So ask yourself the question, what are you truly devoted to? And if you struggle with this, look at where you spend your time and your money. And then what deserves that level of your energy? So I've just unpacked a whole lot here and we've just touched on the surface, but keep in mind that words matter and they are energy. They shape our relationships with ourselves, with others, with our business. And when we choose words like love, adoration, and devotion, we're choosing to lead with intention, not obligation. We're choosing to lead with both our hearts and our minds. So this week, I invite you to notice your words. Notice how you speak about your profession, your work, or your business. Notice how you speak about your family. Notice how you speak to yourself. Ask yourself the question, how can you adore yourself and what am I devoted to? So, if today's episode stirred something in you and you're craving connection with other heart centered women who are building businesses with purpose and soul, I'd love to invite you to join us in the Build Her group. And the link can be found in the show notes. It's a group where like minded women come together to support each other. I provide content and additional material throughout the month. You have an opportunity to be on a coffee chat with me and ask questions, dig into another topic. And it's really this community of women just like you. They're visionaries, they're bold, they're committed to creating impact while staying aligned with who they really are. And it's not just about strategy, it's also about building a community and sisterhood. I hear over and over again that being an owner of a business is lonely, and I don't believe that. I think it's a choice. There are other people out there doing what you're doing that can add value to your life if you connect with them. So you don't have to do business or life alone. Come be seen, heard, and supported inside the Build Her group. Again, you'll find the link in the show notes or head over to my website to learn more. And until next time, thanks for being here. And remember to keep leading your life with love, clarity, and courage. That's a wrap for this conversation. I'm so glad you've joined us. Remember to subscribe to the podcast so you can catch all of our future episodes and visit us at thelituplife.com for details on how you can become part of the Lit Up Life community. A quick shout out to my friend Jackie Wilson and her friends, the creators of our amazing theme music. Thanks so much for allowing us to share this perfect song with our listeners. Looking forward to having you listen in to our next episode.